Welcome back to Booster Therapy, your cure for that pack cracking addiction. We're here with a long overdue and promised deck tech. The deck tech today was one that was voted from our patrons, and it's my take on a Werewolf tribal deck tech. But before I get into this, let's talk about a couple quick ways you can support the channel, and then I got some new secrets to show you besides the Xenagos, God of Revels. First one is, if you're not already, become a subscriber and hit that thumbs up button. It helps us to get a little bit better known in the community. The other way is to become a patron. There's a link in the description below. And the final way is to head out to nobleknight.com. Supporting them helps to support us. So, without further ado, let's start diving in to my Werewolf tribal. And right off the bat, I'm sure people are going to be angry with me. That's okay, I'm at peace with it, because the first thing we're going to look at here is the commander. The commander for this deck is Xenagos, God of Revels. 3 colorless, a red and a green, indestructible legendary enchantment creature, God. As long as your devotion to red and green is less than 7, he isn't a creature. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains haste and +X until end of turn, where X is that creature's power, and it's a 6/5. So there is only one werewolf that can be a commander, and the truth is he's just not strong enough. So Xenagos is an easy fix, and it's something that we want to see. But before I get into the deck, I wanted to show off. You might have seen some of these if you've been around Reddit or even on Instagram. We have a friend of ours, his name's Colin. He is the owner of The Game Jester. Actually sent some of these our way. And I gotta tell you, these are pretty clean ways to use the things you already have. So if you're like me, if you're a big fan of the spin down you get and you actually like to utilize them, this I thought was a pretty cool way to do that. It has a command zone feature. It's where you put, so I love organized, right? I love being organized when I'm playing Commander. I like kind of stylizing my things in my own way, you know, whether that's special lands or foil cards or what have you. But I love an organizational playmat. I think anything that helps you keep things organized and clean is pretty cool. So there's space for your life counter, space here for your 3 opponents to track commander damage if that starts becoming a thing for you. There's attacks, so you know the way that I use this, because I've been using this for a couple of our games now, is something like that. It helps to track that tax, and you kind of have this nice hardened plastic commander space. So I'm actually going to keep Xenagos in there throughout the video. What I would encourage you guys all to do is head on out to their website. It's going to be linked in the description below, but this is again the Game Jester. He has a lot of these for sale, and there's even a new color that he's doing now, and it's yellow. So he's got a few different colors here, and there's also a few different styles. So, you know, if you're like me, I do prefer the one that I think kind of maximizes the space, like really utilizes everything. But if you want something a little bit more simplified, maybe just with the command zone and with the dice, that's there. So he really gives you a lot of different options. You can actually even pay a little extra and personalize these things to say essentially whatever you want. I think I'm right. What I would say is check out his website. Again, click the link in the description below for that to learn a little bit more. And we're going to keep Xenagos up here in his little commands. Actually, no, I'm going to keep it over here because this is where I would be playing with it if I was playing. So let's dive through the deck. Look at that, a couple wolf tokens. We'll talk about that shortly. The first thing I always like to start with, though, is the part that I'm not going to dive forever into, but it's just the lands. The lands are pretty simple here. This is Brule. You're playing 2 colors, so red and green, and just making sure you utilize a lot of the effective cards that are in that. The Keswick Wolf Run is pretty good, but a lot of the other things are pretty simple things that you would probably already have in your collection. Maybe you got a couple Ancient Tombs to really kick things off a little bit faster, but there's the lands. Not going to go into detail as far as that goes, but the deck list will be in the description if you want to see the specific lands I use. There are better choices. There are more expensive choices when you're playing 2 colors. I never feel like you have to really go that hard on it, I guess. The first thing that I always like to cover is ramp. Ramp is essential to being good in Commander. Whoever gets more lands on the field is going to do more things in a turn, and if you can be doing the most, you are most likely to win. Or to die right away, because everybody's going to be mad at you. So my first one is Kodama's Reach. Kind of a standard ramp spell. I believe we all should be playing these, and anytime we're playing green, Kodama's Reach should exist. The next one I have is Pier's Whim. So Pier's Whim lets you search for any land. So let's say a Kessig Wolf Run is going to be our way to win now, because we're getting heads up and we need to search for a land. This lets you find any land, which makes it a little bit more effective. Kind of expensive, but the trade-off here is it's got a little bit of a way to play politics. You've got the friend or foe mechanic, and picking foes makes them sacrifice artifacts. So the idea here is, even early on, you pick yourself as a friend, get any land you want, and ramp one forward. You pick your opponents as foes, and if they've got soul rings and other things like that out, they're having to sacrifice one of those and take a step backwards. Next is, well, of course, Soul Ring. If you're playing Commander, likely your deck should include this card. Cultivate, basically Kodama's Reach, but just doubling down on the mechanic. Growing Rites of Itlama kind of serves as a dual purpose. You're going to see that we're going to have so many creatures in this deck, so we're going to flip this real quick and turn it into a Gaia's Cradle. But it also has another service for us early on, you know, if we're trying to find the right kind of creature, it does that for us too. And the last one that I have in here is Gruul Signet. The Gruul Signet is just real effective. It's that turn 2 or maybe even turn 1 if you can go Soul Ring and then a Signet. That's the ideal first play if you can get there. So that is the ramp for the deck. The next I want to cover is a couple of on-theme Planeswalkers. So the first one is Arlinn Kord. Arlinn Kord is really effective for this deck when you're slamming into somebody. The other thing is we're going to want to create a lot of wolf tokens, and we want to double down on that because we're not looking at just benefiting werewolves, we're going to benefit wolves as well. So Arlinn Kord makes those tokens for free and then flips into, well, a beautiful werewolf. Let's stay on theme. Arlinn, Embraced by the Moon. This way, you know, flipping her gets to like insane effectiveness. So you're starting to give your creatures all +1/+1 and trample, so we can get through the second that we get to turn bigger than our opponents. So just an effective Planeswalker, and again, on theme. The other one is Garruk Relentless, another one to create wolves, and if that's all we do with it, we're fine with it. Creating tons and tons of 2/2 wolves is a good thing. We can also pick off a creature and flip him if he survives it, and we get Garruk the Veil Cursed, where we can start pumping out 1/1 black wolf creatures with Death Touch, so a little bit more effective. And our -3, our alting is crazy good because we're going to start filling up our graveyard with at least 3 or 4 creatures. I mean, we're going to have some loss throughout the game. This guy's going to be able to trigger off that. Those are the only 2 Planeswalkers I have in this deck. The next thing I want to go into is, whoa, not knocking over the camera, we'll stop that for a second, is the werewolves that I have with this deck. So there's a lot of them. We're going to kind of go through them pretty quick and just talk about the simple pieces of the werewolf. The idea here, though, is I'm not going to be able to flip each one. It would just take too long, and we're already 8 minutes in. But each one, it just flips to a stronger mechanic. So I have the Gastoff Shepherd. Again, he's 2/2 for 2. He flips into a 3/3 Intimidate, so he's just harder to deal with, a little bit of evasion. Lambholt Elder is going to help us to kind of lock down a board. I'll flip this one because this one actually has some sweet power that it turns into, because we get to draw cards off of it. And card draw, outside of ramping, is another way you're going to win. So the Lambholt Elder. We get the Breakneck Rider. This helps us to do a little bit more damage when it benefits attacking creatures when flipped. The Scorned Villager is our way to ramp. It's, you know, I couldn't put a Werebear in here because it doesn't benefit from the werewolf mechanic, but this is our version of the Werebear. And it flips into being able to tap for 2, which is nice. And having Vigilance is just a plus. Again, the idea here is we're gonna look like a non-threat early on. Just a lot of weird little creatures that are hard to flip over and keep flipped. So we got the Hermit of Natternulls. This one, again, lets us draw more cards and kind of controls the board a little bit. We got the Gyre Reach Bandit. This is a 3/2 haste werewolf, which is already good, but it transforms and gives you that much more power. So at the beginning of each upkeep, or sorry, whenever a werewolf enters the battlefield under your control, you may transform it. So instead of waiting for the turn with no spells, which does happen every now and again, you get to turn them right away. So just a good way to trigger off that. We have a first strike werewolf, the Cruin Outlaw. That turns into a double strike werewolf that has menace. So we get the terror of Cruin Pass. And that's the other reason I love werewolves. I'm a huge horror movie fan, and this is just so on par. This turns into a 5/5 regenerate werewolf, so just another nice big body. Here's the one that could be the potential commander. It is technically a werewolf commander. It's just not quite strong enough. It does have a cool ETB, but you know, in a game with 3 opponents, it's just not going to get us there fast enough. Now, when it transforms, you can have it fight a non-werewolf creature you don't control, which is kind of nice. So this guy transforms and is a removal spell on top of being a powerful creature. So pretty good. The Ulvenwald Captive, another one that transforms into a big Eldrazi werewolf. And this one's nice because it doesn't have to switch back based on spells played, so it just stays transformed into that bigger body. The Instigator Gang, this just helps us get a lot more damage in. When it flips, attacking creatures get +3/+0. So, and again, if we have Garruk out there or Arlen Cord and we're able to give things trample, it really just helps. The Mondronin Shaman, this one we will flip to because it actually has a lot of power. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, it deals 2 damage to that player. So it's just punishing people from doing too much. Because, you know, we want people to slow down and let us amass our board state with tons and tons of werewolves. The Afflicted Deserter just turns into a 5/4. Conduit of Storms, another one that stays permanently transformed, and it has an attack mechanic where we get to add mana to our mana pool and just do more in a turn. The Daybreak Ranger turns into a 4/4 that can tap to fight and kill a creature, so it helps us with a little bit more removal. The Sage of Ancient Lore, this one's actually really powerful. It's mainly in Commander, so on the surface, 4 colorless and a green. Its power and toughness equal to the number of cards in your hand, and you get to draw a card, so it at least replaces itself. But when it flips is where it gets insane. So this guy flips, and his power, so he's got Vigilance and Trample, which is great. His power and toughness is equal to the number of cards in all players' hands. So when there's 4 players in a game, the Sage of Ancient Lore is a big boy. The Kessig Prowler, so this one again is just a permanent transform, so we don't have to worry about it flipping back on us, but also a 2/1 for 1, so just effective. This one I might be replacing pretty soon here with Arlen Cord, if I'm honest, so Arlen Cord really is going to benefit a lot of what we're doing. The Planeswalker from War of the Spark. Duskwatch Recruiter is extremely good, whether it's flipped or not. It's just either making our creatures cheaper, or it's letting us reveal cards from the top of our library to fill our hand up. Then you've got, of course, the Mayor of Avabruck. This is your lord, your werewolf lord, and your human lord. When it flips, and if you can keep this guy flipped, he is insane. So other werewolf and wolves you control get +1/+1. At the beginning of your end step, put a 2/2 green wolf into play. So he makes tokens as well, and he's just really, really powerful. The Mayor. You need the Mayor if you're playing werewolves. Huntmaster of Fells is another staple. It puts more tokens, it gains you life, and when it flips, it deals damage, and it can flip right back again and do it all over again. So he's some really nice recursion in what he's able to do in his abilities. And then the Henware Watchkeep is just a big boy that turns into a 5/5, and he's cheap. So 5/5 that has to attack each turn. That is our chunk of werewolves. The next thing we're going to step into is our wolves. So we're benefiting not just werewolves with this deck, we're benefiting wolves as well, and we're going to play a bit off the tokens that we can create, and we'll talk about that in a moment as well. But the Wolf of Devil's Breach, this guy's nasty, and he helps you discard cards, so if you're looking for things like when Garruk flips to the Veil Cursed, you want a few creatures in your graveyard, you're going to be discarding cards, dealing damage with this guy, 5/5 for 5 that's likely benefiting from some sort of other pump-up that's out on the board, just really good. The Wolfir Silverheart. This is one of my favorite wolves. Basically he gets on the board, he's going to be an 8/8 alongside of somebody else getting debuff from him. Then with Xenagos as well, and being able to trigger him to attack right away, making him a 16/16 is real gross. The Pyre Heart Wolf, just a good way to get menace for our creatures, and he has Undying, so he's a hard guy to kill. The Werewolf. This guy is so essential, and there's one way that we can even tutor him up. We kind of want the Werewolf. We don't need it, but it is real good to get, because not only is it a lord to the wolves and werewolves, it stops our werewolves from transforming back, so we can kind of lock the board and keep them the way we want them to be. Spirit of the Hunt is just a nice little flash spell to save one of our creatures if somebody's trying to burn it down. This benefiting a wolf with +0/+3, plus it's a 3/3 wolf for 3. The Silver Fur Partisan is just punishing those who are trying to target him, giving us some more wolf tokens. And we've got Ulrich's Kindred. This is going to give, we'll be able to make our guys indestructible, so just saving our wolves and werewolves, which is good. And the Metallic Mimic. If you're playing tribal, this guy should always go in it. He's just real good. Next up, we're going to talk about a few cards that are going to help us with some token generation and just give us a little bit more utility with our wolves. So the Master of the Wild Hunt is crazy good. This is a very inexpensive mythic, reprinted in Masters 25. It's going to make a wolf every turn for you, a 2/2 wolf, and it can trigger as or double as removal, so you can tap your wolves to fight. The Cult of the Waxing Moon. Whenever a permanent you control transforms into a non-human creature, put a 2/2 wolf on the board, so it just helps us get more tokens. The Bramble Sovereign, because in this deck, you're not playing a lot of legendary creatures, and you really want to make a lot of doubles, especially if you can get something like the Gaia's Cradle mechanic out there, and you're just being able to tap and pay the 2 to make a token for yourself on all the creatures you're casting. The Kessid Cage Breakers helps us to get more tokens when it attacks. It's based on the number of creature cards in our graveyard. The Sword of Body and Mind. Real effective, gives us some protection, and hey, if we get damage through, we get a 2/2 wolf, and we get to deck our opponents. And hopefully you can read this card. I didn't put it in there just because there's beautiful wolves on it. This is Parallel Lives, and how this card reads is whenever you have one or more tokens placed on the battlefield, double that number. So it doubles the token. So if we have something putting a 2/2 wolf, we're going to get 2 of them. If it says there's 2 that we're putting on, we're going to get 4 of them, and so on. And last but not least, Doubling Season. Because if you're going to play tokens, you should do this too. All right, the next is a bit to benefit our tribal and just kind of push it over the top. Some interesting mechanics that we'll have out there. The first one is Beastmaster Ascension. Again, we're going to have so many 2/2 wolf tokens and so many little werewolves out there and humans. We're going to easily swing for 7. The second we get 7 counters on this, and again, if we have Doubling Season, we're going to get there that much faster. This makes it so all of our creatures get +5/+5, so it just makes them huge threats and hard to deal with. Kindred Summons helps us to choose a creature type. Likely going to pick Werewolf, although I could see a situation where you're picking Wolf as well, and dig through a bunch of cards and try to get some onto the battlefield right away. Vanquisher's Banner. This helps us to draw a card for each one of those creatures we cast, and it gives all of our werewolves +1/+1, or wolves, it kind of depends. Door of Destinies is one that you might actually pick wolf with over werewolf, because this enters the battlefield, and it's not, or sorry, no, you're going to pick wolf because it's going to be casting it, and you get to add the 1/1 counters, and it just escalates and gets bigger and bigger, and again, with Doubling Season, it's that much more effective. Waxing Moon, it lets us transform one of our werewolves and flip it over and give it trample, so we get to trigger the transform. Usually you're going to want to use this on one that doesn't have to flip back based on number of spells played. The Full Moon's Rise, it just helps all of our werewolves to have trample and +1/+0, and in a pinch, we can regenerate all of them as well. The Howl Pack Resurgence, the nice thing about this is it has flash, and each creature you control, it's a wolf or werewolf, gets +1/+1 and has trample again. So just trying to get that damage through and not have people chump blocking us. And then the Moon Mist, we get to transform all of our humans. So making sure we get all the wolves, it doubles as a way to prevent our wolves from dying, and it has that beautifully haunting artwork. Next up, we're going to talk about a few humans that help us get a few things done. I guess not all humans, but a few creatures that just have a lot of utility. The first one is the Champion of Lamholt. So no surprise, this is all within the same block of Innistrad where a lot of these werewolves came from. This is Avacyn. The creatures with power less than Champion of Lamholtz can't block. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, again, doubling season, parallel lives, we're going to see a lot of this. We get a 1/1 counter, so Champion of Lamholtz gets big fast. The Imperial Recruiter is actually really effective for this deck. So when it enters the battlefield, we can search for Werewolf, we can search for the Champion of Lamholtz, we can search for so many of our cards because a lot of our creatures have a power of 2 or less that ultimately flip into something more powerful. So this card really lets us find the right answer. Eternal Witness, because I'm playing green, creatures do matter, and this card's real good. Beast Whisperer, because every time we cast a creature spell, we're going to draw a card, and if you haven't noticed, there is a ton of creatures in this deck. And the last one that has just the utility for us is Vigor. Vigor just keeps us alive from combat damage and makes everything bigger, and again, it goes well with our doubling season if we can get them both out. The last little stretch of this deck is some of our removal and just kind of random fit-ins. The first one is Vivian Reed, and I like this for so many reasons. One, it helps us get through our deck and find the answers we need. It also can deal with pesky artifacts, enchantments, or flying creatures, which we don't have a lot of other ways to deal with. And the emblem is super powerful. If we can get to a place of having that emblem trigger, it's real good. Should have included it with the other Planeswalkers, but it didn't flip, I didn't feel right. Vandal Blast answers the artifacts. Overloading this is ridiculously good. Chaos Warp, some targeted removal for something that is too much of a threat for us to find a way to answer right away. Hunter's Insight, because, you know, there's a wolf on it. Not really. The drawing cards is crazy good. So, and it's player or planeswalker, so we don't have to be too overthink it. It's just when we got a guy dealing damage, we're going to get to draw off it. Aether Vial, because it's a great way to cheat things out. And remember, if you're casting, or not casting, if you're putting a creature in with this ability, they can't counter it unless it's countering the ability of Aether Vial. And my final card of the deck. My win condition if the muscle isn't good enough. Triumph of the Hordes, giving all of our creatures +1/+1, trample, and infect. This one really can come out of nowhere, especially if you're ignored as much as this deck gets ignored. Because it doesn't look threatening, man, does this change in one turn, and if they don't have an answer for it, you're taking out at least 1 or 2 people, if not all 3. So, that is my take on the Janky Jank Werewolf deck. Arlene Cord's going to be added to it soon. We're making lots of wolf tokens. Again, check out Game Jester. These are super cool ways. I mean, they really are heavy duty too. They are just really cool ways for you to keep organized and have a little bit of fun with your play group. It might even be a nice little gift because they're really, really inexpensive too. I mean, these are a super fair price for what you're getting. I mean, it's not anything that's cheap. It is pretty heavy duty. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please feel free to leave a comment below. What cards did I miss? What would you add? What did you like about it? And like always, leave a comment below on the commander you want to see next. I have a lot of decks, but I'm willing to build more. Show me what you want. I'll make it happen. Thank you so much. This is Booster Therapy. You have a wonderful rest of your week.